welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of... Okay,
this is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick! Plays it in at the buzzer! That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody. Happy National Signing Day. Welcome into Gamecock Pod Live, the final Gamecock Pod Live for 2023. It is National Signing Day. This is episode number 1380. And howdy, Clint. It's great to have you and a bunch of other folks in. Go ahead and line up your questions in the chat box. Let's get right to the news of the day for National Signing Day. Then we will play our interview with Mike Uva, where we break down the class in detail. So, lots of good stuff today, some stuff we expected. So 2 Gamecock commitments did not sign. One, Zamarian Lang. He was told if he wanted to play wide receiver, he would have to choose another school. And so he did. He chose to go to Toledo. We knew he was not going to sign. We had kind of prepared all you guys for the fact that Braden Lee, because his dad passed away in April after he had already committed to South Carolina, it just felt like he was going to stay home at Maryland. And quite frankly, I think he's known for a long time he was going to stay home at Maryland. My only thing is, go ahead and let the coaches know in November. I mean, you know, they waited too late to offer Quaysheed Scott. He's going to Kentucky. And so you're only signing one corner. I'll talk about this with Mike, but that is definitely a need moving forward. But you did add big-time corner Jalewis Solomon. And so the biggest news of the morning, wide receiver DeBron Gatling, 6', 190 from Milton High School, a 5A state champion, a guy that was a Max Preps All-American as a freshman and a sophomore. This past season, 84 receptions, 963 yards, and 11 touchdowns. And they had a 6'5" junior wide receiver on that team that is really a stud. And so he was not even the best receiver on his team, but this is a guy that had 44 scholarship offers and literally could have gone anywhere else in the SEC, to a lot of Big Ten, a lot of Big 12, a lot of Pac-12, a lot of ACC schools, and this is a really good get for South Carolina. Quite frankly, I like him. He's bigger. He's got more size. I think he's really, really good. And so he signed this morning with South Carolina, and he really could have gone anywhere in the country. He committed to Texas A&M over a year ago. And that's all you guys know. when that happens, guys kind of get overlooked. They get lost in the shuffle of all the eye candy of the uncommitted wide receivers. But look, Damian Craig's one of the best wide receivers coaches and recruiters in the country. He brought in a lot of studs at Florida State, at Auburn, and at Texas A&M. He knows what a big-time wide receiver is. They identified this guy early. South Carolina steals him after Jimbo gets fired. He was on the sideline for the Kentucky game. I saw him. Really a great-looking player. And so you add him, okay, South Carolina, by the numbers in this class, which I think is one of the best recruiting classes in South Carolina history. For the first time ever, 2 composite 5 stars, 5, which is the current ranking of your portal class, 8, which is the number of high school signees who will either play in the Under Armour All-America game or the All-America Bowl in San Antonio. 9 is the number of ESPN top 300 high school prospects. Okay, 12 is the rank of your class numerically, meaning only 11 other schools have a higher rated class by an average numerical ranking than you do. 13 is the number of expected early enrollees. Okay, the only guys who are not expected to be early enrollees are defensive tackle Jerome Simmons, cornerback Jalewis Solomon, and running back Matthew Fuller. So you get all of these really big time athletic dudes on campus to go through winter, spring, and then, you know, that big after spring practice weightlifting period. 14 is your overall class ranking when you combine high school and transfer portal. By the way, 9 is also the number of transfer portal commitments you currently have. 17 is your ESPN class ranking going into the day. And 18 is your 24/7 sports composite ranking. So it's a great class. It's the first time South Carolina in the modern era of legitimate 5-star rankings has signed 2 composite 5 stars in Dylan Stewart, a defensive end, and Josiah Thompson, a left tackle, which are 2 premium positions outside of quarterback, cornerback, and wide receiver. Those are the other 2 premier big-time positions. And you got a really good quarterback. By the way, Dante Reno will be joining me tomorrow on Gamecock Pod Daily, and we will interview him and get his thoughts on the class. All right, so like I said, you add DeBron Gatling, Braden Lee stays home at Maryland, Zymarian Lang you did not take, and just before we went on the air, Jalen Nichols announced he's entering the portal. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull back the curtain on this guy. Okay. All right. Last year in the spring, he was going to go in the portal after the spring game and go to North Carolina. His mom wanted him not to play in the spring game. Okay, the guy that was Carolina's analyst Freddie Kitchens was the tight ends coach at North Carolina. Him and Mac Brown, they orchestrated the whole thing with the kid's mom. All right. And what happened in the spring game? He tore his ACL. So then he goes to Carolina Rise events. He gets money. He gets NIL money. So now he's staying, right? So he gets the surgery on us. He gets the rehab on us. He gets another semester on the Gamecocks. He gets all the rehab. And then on National Signing Day, he says, peace out. I'm going to North Carolina. Well, I'm sorry. I don't have to feel good for him. I think, quite frankly, he's a piece of crap. That's just my take on that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on YouTube, but I don't really care. And I don't have to be happy for Juice Wells because he got less money going to Ole Miss than he would have if he would have stayed at South Carolina. Okay, he tried to extort South Carolina for more money to play in the last 2 games. So, not high on that. Not high on guys like that. So, look, this is a great class when you look at it on paper. 8 of the 9 transfer portal guys. I've been prepping. I don't know if Jaden McGowan, what he's going to do, quite frankly, if he decides to go to Boston College, so be it. I mean, it won't really bother me all that much. I know 8 of the portal players have signed their papers. They've been announced. I don't know about Jaden McGowan, but if he chooses to go someplace else, then you just go grab somebody better than him in the portal. I mean, look, the guy had a grand total of 88 receiving yards against SEC opponents. That's 11 yards per game. And there were 2 or 3 games where I know the blower is on and the freaking yard guy is not supposed to be doing that. And so somebody's probably in trouble with me. So real quickly, Gamecock men basketball last night, they get a sloppy 72-62 win over Winthrop. Okay, thank God for Meechie Johnson because the Gamecocks could not throw it in the ocean. I mean, they were 6 for 26 from 3, but they were 12 for 12 from the free throw line. Meechie Johnson, 6 of 16 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3. But 8 of 8 from the free throw line. Gamecocks were 12 of 12 from the free throw line. Okay, Talon Cooper, he was 6 for 12, but just 1 for 5 from 3. He had 13 points. Miles Studi, 4 for 9 and 2 for 5 from downtown. He had 10. BJ Mack, I thought, had the worst body language I've ever seen since G.G. Jackson left. For the first time, I thought his body language was not good. There were 1 or 2 of the huddles at the end. He didn't really want to hear what Lamont Paris had to say. I thought his lack of athleticism got exposed. I thought they took it right to him, and you really couldn't play him that much. I mean, he was 3 for 9. He only took 1 3. He was only 2 for 2 from the free throw line. And I mean, I have concerns when you get into conference play about a guy now that's been out-athleted against East Carolina and Winthrop and really relies on the 3 ball too much, if you ask me. Winthrop was led by Kelton Talford. He was 5 for 9 from the field and 10 for 11 from the free throw line. Gamecocks attempted 12 free throws. Winthrop went to the free throw line 29 times and made 23 of them. But it was a rock throwing contest. Winthrop was 16 for 47 from the field. That's like 34%. They were 7 for 21 from 3. That's 33%. The Gamecocks were 27 for 68, which is 39, almost 40%. 6 for 26 from 3 and 12 for 12 from the free throw line. Gamecocks get the win over Winthrop. And thank goodness the Gamecocks were able to make their free throws down the stretch and get some timely rebounds and miss shots. Gamecock women, no problem on the road at Bowling Green. Fred Shamil, one of only 2 of Dawn Staley's assistants that gets both national championship rings. And so the Gamecocks roll there 93 to 62. They really coasted through the fourth quarter. They easily could have scored 100. Chloe Kitts, a career high 21 points for her in 22 minutes. 10 of 12 from the field, 1 of 1 from the free throw line. Gamecocks, Breezy Hall going home to Ohio. She came out on fire. She, in South Carolina, hit like their first 6 threes. She was 7 for 9, 4 of 6 from downtown, 18 points for Breezy Hall. Camila Cardoso had 11 points in 19 minutes, and Pow Pow 4 for 6 from downtown. She had 12 points to be in double figures. Ashlyn Watkins, 9 points. Malaysia Fulwiley, not her best game, 6 points. Fagan, 5 points. Tessa Johnson, 4 points. 1 for 2 from the field and 2 for 2 from the free throw line. They go to 11-0. Gamecocks 10-1 men's basketball for the first time since the 2015-2016 season. So let's just go through here before we go to our interview with Mike Uva, which I did have to record because he had some obligations and didn't want to run up against Shane Beamer's press conference. And so on tomorrow's show, we will interview Dante Reno and we'll have the best of Shane Beamer's press conference. We'll run down all the signings around the SEC. We'll give you the final rankings, and maybe by then we'll know about Jaden McGowan. Look, there's going to be a week, the first week in January, you're going to be able to bring guys on. There'll be a weekend right before the end of drop ad. You'll be able to bring plenty of portal guys on. Mike and I talk about our favorite players. We talk about the class in general, and we talk about the needs remaining. But first, let me tell you about my man Brent Skinner at BP Skinner Clothiers, located in the heart of the Vista, 1003 Gervais Street. At BP Skinner, they built their reputation on the perfect fit of trust, quality, service, and style. And it is their privilege to provide you professional and individual attention to help create a wardrobe that distinctly identifies you. Excellence is their passion, and they strive to make their quality and service as exceptional as the clients they serve. Go and check them out. BP Skinner Clothiers, located in the heart of the Vista. Brent Skinner is a friend of mine. He's been serving clients for over 17 years. He started BP Skinner Clothiers in 2012. And along with his wife, Marlo, this is a Gamecock family-owned and operated business. His main guy, Josh Colvin, is on the floor. And whether it's Gamecock line, the Holderness and Bourne collection, of which I am wearing a tremendous garnet pullover. I have a black pullover as well. They have the golf shirts. They have the Imperial caps, the gray ones that are better than anybody. The same one Spencer Rattler wears, whether it's sport coats, slacks, suits, dress shirts, ties, socks, shoes, pullovers, whatever you need, BP Skinner Clothier has got you covered. Maybe, like my good friend Chris Payne, who's like 6'6", it's kind of hard to find clothes off the rack to fit that big former club volleyball physique that he's got. By the way, shout out to Chris, whose mom made big news out here, particularly in Dallas. She's 90 years old, and she just became the oldest living graduate in the University of North Texas as she got her master's degree and walked across the stage Sunday in Denton. And it was big news all over the state of Texas. Congratulations to her. And I know that had to be a proud moment for Chris, who, by the way, runs Nana's Porch, which is the best and award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area. So going down the list here, and then we'll have a commercial break. Don't forget tonight, the Garnet and Black Town Hall. That should really be a blast. I'll probably, in overtime, let everybody know what I think about Jalen Nichols. Dante Reno, 6'2", 205. He's in the Under Armour All-America game, and he's been selected as a captain for that game. He chose the Gamecocks over Miami, UNC, Wisconsin, Arizona, Kentucky, Louisville, and Nebraska. Cam Pringle, 6'7", 360. He will, and all these guys are early enrollees. He chose the Gamecocks over Clemson, Ohio State, Tennessee, Auburn, LSU, Florida, Georgia, Florida State, and Michigan. Mazio Bennett, 5'11", 180, chose the Gamecocks over Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, and others. Blake Frank, 6'5", 345, Greenville High, also an early enrollee. He chose the Gamecocks over committable offers from Clemson and Alabama. Wendell Gregory, one of my favorite guys in the class, 6'3", 225. They played Milton in the state championship. They were favored, but Milton took it to them. Gregory chose the Gamecocks over Tennessee, Auburn, Michigan, Arkansas, and Florida State. Michael Smith, another one of my favorite players in the class, a tight end from Savannah. 6'5", 250 pounds, an unbelievable player. Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, Texas, Ohio State. Just a few of his offers. Josiah Thompson, a composite 5-star. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State, and many, many more. Dylan Stewart, a 5-star plus, a 5-star by everybody. Okay, 6'5", 250. Tennessee, Ohio State, Miami, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, and many, many more. Matthew Fuller, one of the few guys that will not be a mid-year enrollee. 5'10", 205. Okay, you beat Georgia Tech, Minnesota, and Central Florida for him. Okay, he did not have a lot of early offers, but this was a great evaluation by Shane Beamer and Connor Shaw and J-Bo Shaw. They really did the job here, making sure that this guy stayed in the fold, and he had a phenomenal senior year and was became a 4-star, became the number 11 running back in the country. Craig, that is a great comparison to Michael Trigg. I think he's a 6'5", 250-pound version of Jaheim Bell, who will be utilized much better than Jaheim Bell was. Mason Love, the number 1 punter and kicker in the country. He's in the Under Armour All-America game. You beat Cal and the service academies for him. I bet Missouri is regretting not offering him a scholarship. Another one of my favorite players, Fred J.R. Johnson, listed 6'4", 225 out of the 757 Maury High School in Norfolk, Virginia. All this guy did was lead his team to the 5A state championship. He was first team All-State as a tight end. He was first team All-State on defense, and he was the 5A Defensive Player of the Year. And his upside may be better than anybody in this class. He is a freak of an athlete. You beat, and he's like Matthew Fuller, a big senior riser. He was a 3-star when he was committed. Tip of the cap to Pete Limbo and to Torian Gray for getting this guy into camp, getting him on campus, and getting him committed. You beat Virginia Tech for him. Kelvin Hunter, a 4-star safety from Florence. You beat Virginia Tech, Michigan, Auburn, Kentucky for him. Jalewis Solomon. This guy may be the most underrated guy in the class, and he's an Under Armour All-American. But this guy's got like some serious Travis Hunter comparisons here. He is a dude. Inside the building, they think he could be a day 1 starter at corner. That's how good they think he is. And when's the last time South Carolina flipped a guy from Auburn? And his brother is a 5-star linebacker for next year. So you beat Auburn, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and Kentucky, among others. Jalewis Solomon, clearly one of the best players in this class, vastly underrated. DeBron Gatling, we ran down his list of schools, some of them. A&M, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, Florida State, Florida, Georgia, Miami, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, Oregon, Penn State. I mean, a who's who of offers at 44. And then another guy, David Busey out of Savannah Christian. He's teammates with Elijah Griffin. This guy's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He plays wide receiver and linebacker. He's probably a strong safety that maybe could grow into a 220-pound linebacker. But he's just like J.R. Johnson and Wendell Gregory. When they get there, they have bad intentions. And so those are the high school guys you know about. The portal guys, headlined by Rocket Sanders and Kyle Kennard. All right, I will be back with Mike Uva right after this commercial message.
If you enjoy listening and watching the free Wednesday show, now live streaming on YouTube, and would love more Gamecock Pod daily, join our growing Gamecock family by becoming a monthly or annual subscriber. You'll be able to listen to the show every day of the week and listen to guests like J.C. Sherbert, Hale McGranahan, and John Whittle from thebigspur.com, Colin Taylor and Mike Uva from Gamecock Central, Emily Adams from the Greenville News, Ben Portnoy, Michael Lanana, and Jeremiah Holloway from GoGamecocks.com, Michael W. Bratton, the host of That SEC podcast, and many, many more. As a VIP subscriber, you can join or listen to the weekly live Zoom call with up to 100 of your favorite Gamecocks and friends. After the show is an unrecorded overtime segment where the real scoop gets dropped and discussed. It's like going down to your local pub or sports bar and having a conversation with your Gamecock friends about last week's football game, men's and women's basketball games, and Gamecock baseball. And of course, there's always recruiting to discuss. In addition to the weekly Zoom call, VIP subscribers get the most popular podcast, The Morning After, which is released every Sunday morning during football season, and more VIP perks are in the works. Follow Keith on Twitter at KAllset, or follow the show on Twitter at Gamecock Pod. Go to the top of the homepage and follow the link. If all else fails, go to patreon.com/Gamecock Pod Daily. Join now and get up to 3 months free off an annual VIP subscription. You will love it, guaranteed. Now, back to Gamecock Pod Live.
And we welcome back into Gamecock Pod Live on National Signing Day. Two-time Emmy award-winning sportscaster, now with Gamecock Central. And he's got a nice-looking beard going there. Are you Santa Claus this year?
I don't know.
Are you really Santa Claus?
I'll tell you what, with all the transfer portal news, the girlfriend would love to see the beard hop into the portal, but we'll have to see if the NIL money's right or not. So we'll see. But this is, I've never grown out a beard. When I tried to do it a couple of years ago, I knew it wasn't going to happen because from a TV standpoint, you always need to get approval from the news director, number one. But number two, quite frankly, let's just call a spade here. Anytime I try to grow a beard, I looked like Paul Pierce. I had the Etch-a-Sketch beard. I could not grow a real beard. So it's slowly coming along. Any beard enthusiast out there, feel free to let me know what I should do to continue to keep this bad boy going. I'll probably trim it up a little bit, though, at some point.
Okay, so I'd say you'd probably prefer your bank account to resemble Paul Pierce's more than the beard. And, well, hey, all props to you. You did pretty good with the ladies, but I mean, like Paul Pierce has got like 3 different cell phones, and you don't ever know which Instagram sensation sliding into his DMs. So
I have no comment for that, but that made me chuckle.
Okay, so here's the question everybody wants to know: are you on the naughty list this year, or did you finally get off? of
Shoot,
Santa's naughty list.
I'm sure I pissed someone off, but you're never going to make everyone happy as long as the girlfriend's happy, right? Girlfriend, wife. I'm quickly learning. As long as you make them happy, everything else, 90% of the time, will be all right. So I think we'll be in good shape this year.
No doubt about it. Hey, let me tell you who else is happy today, and that is one Shanius Beamer, head coach of the Gamecocks. As we record this, due to time constraints, Gamecock 16 high school signees, 8 in high school All-America games. 6 will be in the Under Armour All-America game. That will be Dante Reno, Cam Pringle, Dylan Stewart, one of 2 consensus 5 stars for the Gamecocks. Mason Love, the number 1 kicker in the country. Jalewis Solomon and wide receiver DeBron Gatling, who this morning chose South Carolina over really everybody. I mean, DeBron Gatling, 44 offers for him. Everybody in the SEC, and this dude is a killer. DeBron Gatling, 6 foot, 195, won a state championship 5A at Milton High School in Atlanta, Georgia. One of the most highly coveted wide receivers. But Mike, like a lot of guys, when they commit really early, they kind of get lost in the shuffle, and all the evaluators start turning their eyes to other people. Personally, I think this kid's probably, I like him a little better than Mazio Bennett, who's a 4-star wide receiver. Your thoughts?
I think there's a couple things that I do like, and we'll get into. I know you mentioned maybe a player or 2 that stands out to me about this class. So we'll get into that obviously a little bit later. There's things that Mazio does well that I really like, but there's certain things from watching Gatling that I really, really enjoy. And I think too, and I think you're spot on, Keith, that unfortunately you gotta get lost in the shuffle sometimes when you commit early. I mean, here's a guy that was a Max Preps All-American as a freshman and sophomore. He had 963 yards receiving, 84 catches, 11 touchdowns last year. He's had over 2,500 yards the last 3 years, 31 receiving touchdowns in that span. He's a big-time player. And I think right now, when you look at South Carolina's wide receiver room, and I know that there's some people worried still, right? You until it's pen to paper with some of these transfers. I get it. I understand. But let's just, take it at face value that everyone that has verbally committed will follow through with their commitment. Even if that is the case, you still have some question marks in that room. So let's just play the game. Let's just say, okay, those guys come in, but let's say they don't bring another wide receiver in, which I still think they will try. You have a lot of talented young wide receivers in that room between freshmen and sophomores. Like, someone is going to have to step up. Someone's going to have to step up. And if someone does, Gatling would certainly be one of those players I'd keep an eye on. I mean, Elijah Codwell's another one. I think he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit because of an early season injury. But as far as freshmen go, I do like some things that Mazio Bennett does from a route running standpoint. But when you look at Gatling, he's got some size to him too. This is a very, very talented wide receiver that I could see making an impact right away, especially in a very, very inexperienced wide receiver room heading into 2024, at least as of today.
Mike, no doubt about it. So I think I got all 6 of the guys in the Under Armour game. 2 guys in the All-America Bowl, which used to be the Army All-America game in San Antonio. And that is Fred J.R. Johnson, who was first-team All-State 5A as a tight end. And then the 5A Defensive Player of the Year in Virginia. This guy is a hoss daddy, okay? 6'4", 225. He runs like a deer. And Mike, the most impressive thing is when he can track the ball, and when he arrives with bad intentions, and he is a big-time player, as is probably the top overall player in the class outside of Dylan Stewart. That is Josiah Thompson, 6'7", 280 from Dillon High School, and he's enrolling early. Most of these guys are enrolling early, and I mean, Cam Pringle, 6'7", 360. Blake Frank, 6'5", 345. All of these guys are enrolling early. And so they're all going to have an opportunity to reshape their bodies and get ready to go. But particularly in Pringle and Thompson, South Carolina landing a pair of elite offensive tackles and a consensus 5-star at two of the most premium positions, offensive tackle, and then Dylan Stewart, a 5-star edge rusher, probably the most college-ready edge rusher in the class of 2024.
And I think that's something that people need to keep in mind. I think, and Keith, I don't know where you stand with this. So, this isn't a shot at you if you think this way, but you might not think this way. I don't friggin' know. But I understand that this fan base has got so caught up with the transfer portal with certain positions. They're like, where's the offensive lineman? Where's the offensive lineman? I've said this. If you can bring in an offensive lineman that you're not having to break the piggy bank for, because at the end of the day, right, even though South Carolina has done a very nice job, Garnet Trust, I give credit to Carolina Rise. They came together and they're closing in on that $1 million match. It's been phenomenal. Shout out to JC Sherbert. He's been doing a tremendous job of promoting it and being able to work with Jeremy and obviously what we've been doing at Gamecock Central as well. But the point being is fans are making an impact right now through NIL. Having said that, there's still, only so much money that can go around, right? I mean, this isn't monopoly money. So I say that because I still think if South Carolina can go out there, bring an experienced offensive lineman in, that's phenomenal. Having said that, and Keith, this is what some people they just lose their minds about. Like, yes, the offensive line had struggles last year. The offensive line, though, also was so freaking banged up that you had two true freshmen having to start games there. Now, we can look at that now as a glass half full moment because one of those guys turned out to be a freshman All-American. Now, certainly that's not what you would have loved, right? You would have loved to have been able to have your starters be healthy, going back to even friggin' Jalen Nichols in the spring game. So I say that because when you look at what South Carolina has coming back, I'm not saying I feel comfortable necessarily saying, okay, Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson, these guys are going to start. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, to me, at least as of right now, I think those are two guys right now that can go in there and certainly be in the two deep. Certainly can be in the two deep. And when you look at that room, I think they're going to have more depth based on where they are right now. I think they're going to have more depth. They're going to have more experience. I'm not saying they're going to be the greatest offensive line in the country next year. Because at the end of the day, and we all know this, and maybe some people need to hear this, this, Keith, you can have all the talent in the world in that offensive line room. Can they play well together as a unit? That's the issue. You have some talented guys coming back. You got to figure out, if Vershawn Lee, who's going to be center? Do you feel comfortable enough with Vershawn being at center? So there's going to be some question marks, but my point is I feel better about where the offensive line is. And even with some of these young guys, I'm not saying, again, if Josiah Thompson balls out and he has a great, because like you mentioned, a lot of these guys are enrolling early. If they ball out and you feel comfortable, that's great. That's phenomenal. But I still feel like a lot of these guys will be on that too deep because they're talented enough, and you're not going to have to force them into that role. Knock on wood that everyone stays healthy.
No, I completely agree. I mean, if South Carolina could have gotten Monroe Mills, the elite, the number one left tackle in the portal. Yes, you would love him because then you can probably kick Jalen Nichols to right tackle or inside.
Absolutely.
And that gives your freshmen a year to where they don't have to start as a true freshman because, at least these guys are coming in mid-year. Neither Trevon Ball nor Tree Babalade had the benefit of a winter workouts and a spring practice. They came in the summer. Marquis Anderson was the only offensive lineman in that class, which was a very highly rated class. And quite frankly, I love all those guys. Let's not forget about Jatavius Shivers. I mean,
Absolutely.
This is a guy South Carolina beat Michigan for, who's like 6'7", 300. And I mean, his arms almost incredibly long arms. He's got a huge wingspan, which is what you really look for at offensive tackle. And now you're bringing in more elite guys like Josiah Thompson, like Cam Pringle, even Blake Franks, who'll probably play inside. But no, South Carolina does not need to go get 3 or 4 portal offensive linemen. They need to get everybody healthy. They need to get Jalen Nichols healthy. Vershawn Lee needs to be healthy. Trey Jones, who was playing really well, he got injured. He needs to be healthy. Ja'Kai Moore needs to be healthy, and so does Case and Henry. And then you've got all of those veteran type guys, and then you've got 2 classes of extremely talented, athletic, and just straight up some big time road graders. And now all of a sudden you're in a lot better shape on the offensive line, and you better be, because you've already got in the boat all 3 of your transfer portal running backs, which hats off to the Gamecocks. They're not going to go into next year. Matthew Fuller, a 4-star back, he also signs today, 5'10", 205, but you get Rocket Sanders, who, when healthy, let's face it, there's no doubt about it, he is the best running back in college football when healthy. You go back and turn on the 2022 film when that dude was about 225, 230 pounds, over 1,400 yards. I mean, he is a hoss daddy. You've got him. You steal Oscar Attaway III from my wife's alma mater, the Mean Green of North Texas.
Mean Green.
Who's played a lot of football, and people inside the building just as excited about this guy as Rocket Sanders. And then you get the MEAC's leading rusher, a true freshman who's got 4 years to play 3, Juwan Howell, who kind of reminds a little bit of Derek Watson and a little bit, for me, of Kent Haygood, who I know you won't remember, but if you go back and watch the 84 Notre Dame game, Kent Haygood, Thomas Dendy, and those guys with Mike Holt, they were slicing the Irish up. Extremely talented backs now. To add to DJ Braswell, okay, so that gives you 5 guys, really 5.5, because let's face it, Juju's not an every down back. He's a specialty guy. He's a guy that you could maybe move around in the slot some. You could split him out and go empty and use him in the quick game, the screen game, the wheel routes. And so South Carolina's completely flipped the running back room in very impressive fashion.
Yeah, and one thing that you mentioned, Keith, that I think we're starting to see, and again, it's just 1 year, it's just one offseason, it's just honestly just a couple weeks, but I think we're starting to see a South Carolina team learn from their mistakes from last year in the portal. And what I mean by that is they were so determined to land one certain running back in particular, the one that left Notre Dame that went to LSU, and they got so hung up on that by the time he committed to LSU, what do? Well, we're going to go to our number 2 option. And by then, because they had spent so much time on plan A, they were already left in the dust there. And then after that, it's like, oh God. Now, being able to bring Mario Anderson in, Anderson did a nice job last year, okay? Would you have liked to have maybe a little bit more experience? No question. But Mario did a nice job. It took him some time, right? But, things worked out. I think they've learned from that. Now, I say that because they have been very, very proactive in the running back room. There's no question about that. right? From the sounds of it, and we've kind of put some stuff out about on Gamecock Central yesterday. From the sounds of it, Alabama's kind of taking their hands off Daniel Hill. It's really going to come down between Mississippi State and South Carolina. And from talking to people still close to the situation, South Carolina is not concerned if Hill commits to South Carolina, despite the fact that their running back room is so full. So I say that because they had a plan in place. The plan in place was, okay, we know Daniel Hill is going to commit on January 6th. We have to bring in some guys for at least this season. And we don't know if everyone's going to commit that we're going after, but we also have to start thinking ahead for the next couple of years. So they've loaded up the room. What's the worst thing that happens? Guy leaves, right? I mean, you have so much talent in that room. And I think you can use that room. It's a microcosm of what South Carolina is trying to accomplish in other parts. A.J. Swan, okay, he commits to South Carolina. Next day, after the Jaden Daniel news happens, and by the way, it's put out on Gamecock Central, he was exchanging text messages with guys. He wanted to know that he was going to be the starter here. He wanted to know he was the starter. Okay, go to LSU. It's a different situation. Might not be the starter there, but I'm not going to be a backup at South Carolina. Sorry, Gamecock fans. Some players think that way. Having said that, South Carolina didn't waste any time with going through some of the bigger name guys. And I think that upset some Gamecock fans. But now, as we move past a couple of days since A.J. Swan decided to go to LSU, you can see why South Carolina was being proactive in the quarterback room. So I think they're learning, Keith. Again, the running back room is the one that really stands out to me. But I think they realize, hey, we can't be hesitant. We cannot be hesitant. Will some guys open up maybe in that second portal? Will some guys open up maybe in the next week or two? It's possible. But I think last year they probably had that same notion. And guess what happened? It went in the friggin' butt. Offensive line, running back room. I think they're learning from their mistake from a year ago.
No doubt about it. So I also think South Carolina has really addressed their needs at edge. I mean,
defensive tackle room was looking unbelievable too, Keith. That's something I didn't mention. I mean, I know a lot of people made this huge deal last year about the three-man front. Okay? Oh, they need a three. The reason why they went with the three-man front is because they really did not have any depth at defensive tackle. They had talent, but they weren't able to rest the guys up enough, and you saw it. Look how gassed they were. And I've said this before. I don't care who's in the friggin' secondary. Put J.C. Horn out there. Put Stephon Gilmore, DJ Swearinger, Captain Munnerlyn. Put whoever back there in the secondary. If you're not putting a pass rush on, especially late in the game with the number of snaps the secondary was playing, it's going to be nearly impossible to ask a secondary player to be able to stay on a guy throughout the whole game. So, yes, it changed up things when they went to the three-man front. They were able to rest up some guys. But now, I mean, man, that defensive line room, especially the defensive tackle room, even Jerome Simmons, I really like that kid because even though he's 6'4", 333, he moves. Big boy had a pick last year in his last JUCO game. So I really like what they're doing in that room. So I'm glad you mentioned defensive line, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, getting an older guy like DeAndre Jules, who, is a big, just nasty looking dude. He's in his man's body. Okay. You're not waiting to develop him. He's going to be a 6th-year guy. He is bait. And guess what? Pat Narduzzi, he's a pretty tough football coach. You have to be tough to play defense for them. And so I like him. I like adding Simmons,
and he had some good things to say about him too. He had some good things to say about him. I'm paraphrasing right now, but Narduzzi said that that's the type of guy, based on what he's able to do, especially rushing the passer, that he's the type of guy that can play on Sundays. So it's not just, okay, hey, you know what? Worst case, you bring in a guy that has a lot of experience and he provides depth. Best case scenario, you gain someone that could be pushing for a starting spot. And then if you have guys that you feel like are talented, well, guess what? It's a 5-7 team from a year ago. I mean, everyone should be feeling uncomfortable. That's why I keep talking about the quarterback situation too. No one should feel comfortable. I don't care who you were last year, right? It's kind of in a sense with the transfer portal, it's kind of like getting a new coach every year, really. You're putting everyone on notice that you really can't feel comfortable.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I love Dylan Stewart, South Carolina. Gamecock fans, here's some solace you can take on LT Overton going to Alabama. Okay. He wanted to go to a blue blood. All right. South Carolina staff had Kyle Kennard higher on their board. Why? Because he's more productive, because he's an older guy. Okay. LT Overton, in time, will he be a great player? The jury's out. In 2 years at Texas A&M, I mean, like 19 tackles and 2 starts, okay? Last season, Kyle Kennard, 53 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, and an interception. And a bigger, longer, more athletic guy. You add Dylan Stewart to him, okay? Wendell Gregory is probably like a guy that could play standing up or with his hand in the dirt. And if Fred Johnson, 6'4", 225, he's going to be that same type of guy. I'm still interested to see what happens with Pup Howard, because I think he's probably just going to be too big to play linebacker. And so all of a sudden, you're going to have a wealth of riches at those edge positions. And you know, you're adding 2 bigger guys to a room with Boogie Huntley and Tonka Hemingway and TJ Sanders and Nick Barrett, okay, who outside of Barrett, all of those guys need to get bigger and stronger. You know, that was one complaint. Mike, I know you probably heard, just like me, some of the players came to Shane Beamer during the season, and they were like, hey, we work harder than anybody. We work harder every summer than the summer before. And then we go out in the season and we're not big enough and we're not strong enough. We need to get bigger and stronger. So there are going to be some adjustments made to that strength and conditioning program for those guys to get bigger and stronger. And so that is going to be a much better room. Now, quarterback. The Gamecocks, they wanted A.J. Swan. Sunday he commits. Monday he decommits. The mom, I guess, wins out. I guess it's better to stand on the sideline as a backup in Baton Rouge than Columbia.
And Keith, I'll say this, you know, I'll continue to stand by what I report. I know you're not contradicting what I'm saying, but from being around college football as long as I have, right? Nearly 10 years covering the SEC, 4 years of being a college athlete, and based on some of the things I saw in text messages. When a mother, when a father, sometimes even a sibling, uncle, girlfriend, whatever, when they find out that a player, a relative, a boyfriend, whatever, is being questioned for their competitive spirit, it is really easy to insert yourself and try to find a way to be able to pivot the situation. Now, I'm not saying, because I think some people are like, well, you know, he's not going to go to LSU and start. He might not. But again, and I know for some people, they, for whatever reason, they can't comprehend this. As one parent of a former Gamecock quarterback, I'm not going to say what year it was, people don't come to South Carolina to be a backup quarterback. At LSU, at some of these other schools, if they compete and they don't get the job, they look at it a little differently. People don't want to be a backup here. It's just sorry, you're not on that level where people are like, oh, okay, with being a backup like at Georgia, not the case. So bottom line is this: if a kid doesn't want to compete, screw it. Because like I said before with Lenore Sellers, because I know there's a lot of people that are ready to grab their goggles, they're ready to go, and that's great. As I told them, if Lenore is as good, if he is as good as many people believe he is, bringing someone in, regardless of who it is, it only should get more out of him. It should get the best out of him. If he's going to be good, that's not going to change things. So I think some people are worried. Oh, they're trying to. Yeah, no kidding. Your most experienced quarterback is a guy that led the team in terms of production as far as former Gamecock receivers returning. He had 13 receptions. Luke Doty hasn't started a game at quarterback in 2 years. Lenore Sellers hasn't started a game. Your other quarterback in that realm, at least heading into the spring, is a guy that hasn't even stepped foot on campus yet as a student athlete. And that's Dante Reno. You need competition in there. So it blows my mind that some people can't understand that. That is not a shot. We would be saying it the same way about receiver. We're talking about receiver, right? We talked about running back. Keith, my goodness, with some people.
So let me go Lou Holtz here.
Okay.
I'm not ready to anoint Lenore Sellers and put him in the Hall of Fame just yet.
And there should be no reason to. I agree.
I know at this point for South Carolina and NIL, it's Moneyball. Okay. You've got a certain amount. The portal is resetting. Maybe in January, when a lot of renewals hit, there'll be more in the pot for NIL. I would really like to see South Carolina go out and get an experienced starting quarterback, because guess what? And, I don't know what the market for KJ Jefferson is. I mean, I'm higher on KJ Jefferson than others. I mean, the statistics bear it out. I mean, 45 touchdowns and 9 interceptions during the 2 seasons when Kendall Briles was the offensive coordinator. The man's thrown for almost 8,000 yards. He's rushed for almost 1,900 yards, and he's accounted for 88 touchdowns in 3 years as an SEC starting quarterback. But he's only got 1 year. That's ideal to me because he's the same type of guy as Lenore Sellers. Let Lenore Sellers play in every game. But if KJ Jefferson wins the job, he's like a 5th or 6th year guy. He's going to be one and done. Lenore Sellers is still 18 years old next season. People don't realize Lenore Sellers was 17 when he enrolled at South Carolina and went through spring practice. He can wait a year. Then he would still have 3 years to be a starter. Maybe he is a Hall of Famer. Maybe he will win the Heisman Trophy. But here's the question for you, Mike, being the son of a coach. Okay, Shane Beamer is coming off a losing season in year 3 where you had Spencer Rattler. Year 4, are you really in – what if Ray Tanner retires? And what if South Carolina brings in an athletic director that's not named Chance Miller from the outside? And that guy's sitting there, and you're going with a freshman quarterback, and you go 5-7 in year 4. Are you really – I mean, that's a big risk to me because you may not – in the age of the transfer portal, you may not get year 5. Especially if it's not a guy that hired you, the athletic director. To me, it's a huge risk. And that's why I think South Carolina does still have work to be done in the transfer portal. They need to get 1 or 2 more dudes at wide receiver. Not guys, dudes. Because you got them at running back. You got them at tight end. You have stocked your offensive line room, your returning veterans. But you need playmakers on the outside to really give Lenore Sellers the best shot to succeed as a freshman quarterback in the Southeastern Conference.
And Keith, I think that's the big thing too. And I know people don't want to hear it, but if you're Shane Beamer, you got to do, I mean, I think it's real easy to say this every year, like, oh, you got to do what's best for the team and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, now more than ever, like you really do, because like you said, nothing's promised, right? I mean, especially now in the climate that we live in when it comes to college football, the win now mentality, the honeymoon phase, right? Whatever, everything's done. The big wins to end the last season against Tennessee and Clemson. Those are over with. So I'm not sitting here. I think some people are going to, misconstrue what I'm saying, because there are a bunch of jabronis out there that will be like, Shane's on the hot seat. He's not on the hot seat right now. The problem is if they have a really bad season again and they continue to take a step backwards in what will be a more difficult conference moving forward, simply because divisions are gone. Divisions are gone. You have Texas, you have Oklahoma. It's only going to get tougher. It's only going to get tougher. And I think because again, we're in this new era of the transfer portal and NIL, and South Carolina, look, last season they struggled with the portal. The year before that, they did a really good job, and look what they were able to do. All right? This season, they've been doing a pretty good job with the portal. So I say that because there's a bunch of things now that that other people are paying very close attention to. That could be the future athletic director if there were a change, if it weren't to be someone like Chance Miller. And I'm sure Chance is paying attention to it. There's a lot of things that they're paying close attention to. Like I mentioned, the portal. And so I think, again, if you're Shane Beamer, you've always said it before, you want the best players here, right? Competition is what this program is all about. But I also think that you have to be cognitive of knowing, like, hey, look, and I'm going to piss people off when I say this, but look what happened up in Clemson. Look what happened in Clemson. Klubnik was supposed to be the second coming, to the point where DJ Uiagalelei went to Oregon State. And look what happened. Now,
number one rated quarterback in the country.
Yeah, and that's not to say that, Klubnik might not, he could bounce back real nicely this year. My point is, it's real easy to get caught up, and I know it's ironic for me to say this. It's real easy to get caught up in some of these recruiting rankings, how many stars and this and that. Doesn't mean anything once you get on campus, but especially for that position.
I mean, no doubt about it. So, Mike, give me your favorite three players in the class, and then we're going to talk about areas that still need to be addressed in the portal.
Man, I mean, there's so many of them that I really like. I'm going to try to go away from like the big name guys, right? The Dylan Storts of the world. And I mean, obviously there's going to be some that people would consider big name. I think the first one that I really, really like, and I was watching more footage about him today, or I should say last night. I know I told you I haven't slept yet, so everything's just one giant day to me right now. I really, really, really like Wendell Gregory. Really like Wendell Gregory. That dude,
he's a dog. Yeah.
He is something special. And what I would tell people, if they haven't gone back, we have breakdown videos on every player, little capsules today. And there's a couple plays in there that you can see of Wendell Gregory. He's the number 15th rated edge in the class. But what I really like about him is he has incredible closing speed. And we've seen this, right? I mean, it's funny that we still talk about, athletes that just prioritize in one sport. There's something to be said about a lot of these guys who play multiple sports, but especially run track and field in high school. And he's a guy like, Matthew Fuller. Gregory excels in track and field. And you could see that speed out there on the field. He is just a freakish athlete. So that would be the first one to me. Another guy, too, Calvin Hunter. Now, I think it's going to be tricky for him to get out there on the field as a safety right away, simply because that safety room is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. But one thing that could really help him is he blocked multiple kicks at the high school level. And as we saw from this past year, Alembo was not pleased with some of the younger guys who came there right away, who he felt like could have made a difference on special teams. Hunter goes out there and he makes an impact on special teams. That's the difference sometimes between traveling and not traveling. And all you are is one play away. And God forbid you're on the travel squad and you're providing some depth at safety or whatever the case may be. And that's not to say the kid cannot earn an opportunity to play some safety just by the play he plays safe. But I'm saying is because of the way he plays special teams, I think it could really open up doors for him. So those are two guys in particular. I mean, after that, let's go. You know what? Let's give the kicker some love. Mason Love. I mean, goodness, it's like watching a friggin' video game kicker. I mean, this kid, and what's really unique about him, Keith, obviously he's a really good punter. He's a pretty damn good place kicker, too. And being in the situation that they're in right now, I think Alex Herrera is going to do a great job as a place kicker, but it provides competition, not just for Herrera, but it's also going to keep Kai Kroger honest. And this kid's going to be able to push them, and he's going to be able to learn from them. And I think that young man in South Carolina, as you know, Keith, and many of your listeners know, you look back over the last decade plus, 15 plus years, even going back to Suckup, right? Ryan Suckup. South Carolina has produced some really talented specialists. So I think Mason Love will certainly be the next big name specialist that comes through Columbia.
I mean, I agree. He's considered by ESPN. And so no firing a shot at 24/7 Sports or On3, because I know they do their own online signing day. But for most people, ESPN runs the day today, right? South Carolina, 9 of their high school signees in the ESPN 300. And you go to the JUCO rankings and you add Jerome Simmons, that is 10 guys. And Matthew Fuller just outside the 300. And if South Carolina lands Daniel Hill, that would give them 10 of the ESPN 300. It'd be the first time in history the Gamecocks have had double-digit signees, and especially when you look at the percentage of signees that would make that list, right? I mean, over half of your class in the ESPN 300, that's just unheard of for South Carolina. I say that because the Gamecocks are getting some good pub today for having 8 guys in All-America games, having the number 1 kicker in the country in Mason Love, and 9 ESPN 300s and 1 JUCO in the ESPN rankings. So for me, I'm totally with you on Wendell Gregory. Like, I've been super high on this kid since he committed, but when you watch the senior film, I mean, the burst, the get off is elite. I love him. I love Michael Smith. I think Michael Smith is a bigger, more complete. I mean, he's a freak. He's like a 6'5", 250-pound wide receiver.
That's another good one, Keith. I'm glad you mentioned him.
He runs like Jaheim Bell in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I mean, you turn it on the film, and that guy makes play after play after play after play. I love him. And then, like I said, Fred J.R. Johnson, he was one of the first ones in the boat. But the 5A Virginia Defensive Player of the Year and another freak athlete. And then a guy I love, Jalewis Solomon, who for some reason some people think is a 3-star. I know from talking to my sources, the people inside the building think he's good enough to be a day 1 starter, and he is one of the few guys that will not be a mid-year enrollee. And my good friend Hale McGranahan has compared him to the two-way player who I also think his name's Hunter, number 12 for Colorado, that plays corner and wide receiver. I mean, that's a huge pickup to keep Jalewis Solomon in the class and flip him from Auburn the first time.
Yeah, they've done a good job. And Keith, I'm sure you would agree with this. I mean, I think some people are starting to realize it. No one's saying that it's time to throw a parade down Main Street, but you got to celebrate. I mean, I say you should celebrate the job South Carolina has done, and obviously NIL plays a role with it, with player retention. You know, I still, and I've had this conversation with multiple college coaches, FBS coaches, FCS coaches, and the way that I would number the priority, I would still say that in terms of your core of your team, the importance of it from a recruiting standpoint, when you look at high school recruiting, transfer portal, and player retention, I'd say it's 1A, 1B when it comes to high school recruiting and player retention. And when I'd say, you know, put the transfer portal at 3, that's not saying it's not important, because as we're seeing, it's making an impact. Like, they're bringing in guys. But I think some get so caught up on the transfer portal. This isn't basketball, right? I mean, it would be one thing, and look what Lamont Paris has been able to do with a couple guys for the portal. That's different. You don't have as many players on the team, right? Now, obviously, if you go into the portal, you find a guy like Spencer Rattler. Yeah, obviously. But again, and even if you do have a Spencer Rattler, look at the rest of the team and how things went this year. So you need to be able to still, number one, be able to recruit talented guys out of high school, because the majority of your team, at least over the last couple of years, and I'm sure it'll continue to go this way, will be guys that you recruit still. Yes, some guys will leave. Welcome to college football in 2023. But that's important. And then player retention year after year after year, especially, we'll have to wait and see, especially if this new law, this new rule gets passed, which would allow, and I'm just rolling my eyes just thinking about the chaos, allow players to transfer more than once. Not having to be a grad transfer, not having to deal with a grad student, not having to deal with a coach leaving. They could just leave whenever. That's a scary thought. So, again, being able to retain your players year after year, as dumb as that may sound, oh, you shouldn't have to recruit your... I get it, but this is the new world we live in. You can either just yell at the cloud, or you could say, all right, this is the new era that we live in, and South Carolina is doing a damn good job of it, so let's acknowledge that.
I mean, no doubt about it. Look, you know, would you have loved to have had Wells for Lenora Sellers? Absolutely. I mean, that's a major loss. And quite frankly, you know, Gamecock fans, if you don't want to wish Juice Wells all the best, that's okay. Because it probably wasn't handled the best way. He's probably not getting more.
He's not. He's making less at Ole Miss. Yeah. He's making less than what he's making here. Now, the funny thing is, and I mean, it's not really worth getting too deep into. The funny thing is, because of how his camp handled the whole situation, Juice, that is, if he wanted to come back to South Carolina, that number was actually going to be less than what they were offering him last year, which was still less than what was going to happen at Ole Miss. But I just find that funny, because if you're South Carolina, I give credit. You know, some people might not look at it. I give credit. If you want to leave, you want to go test the market, have at it. But, and I know, you know, there was reports out there, oh, you know, he could come back. Door was shut. It was never locked. There was going to have to be a lot of hurdles they were going to have to overcome. They were going to have to repair a lot of relationship damages that took place between his camp and people in that building. Having said all that, he was also aware that if he came back, his market value at South Carolina had dropped. Welcome to the real world. You go out, you come back.
2 games, when you only play, I mean, NIL is based on production, and you just got to take that money. Look, so moving forward, there's work to be done. There is a week, the first week in January, where guys will be able to make visits. I believe it's the 3rd through the 7th. I think the last day for drop ad is January 18th. So you'll still be able to bring in more guys. So clearly, to me, this is my opinion. You played college football as a defensive back. I think South Carolina needs to upgrade at the cornerback position through the transfer portal. They need to bring in a dude.
I certainly think unless, and I get what they were trying to do last year, and I think to some people they got upset by it. But when you take a step back, I think one of the issues last year, Keith, they struggled to identify who was going to be their nickel. They've been very, very fortunate over the last couple of years. I mean, Cam Smith, you were able to plug him in. You were able to plug him in. I mean, he was obviously, someone that could play inside and out. You got real lucky by bringing in a guy like Carlin Patel, who Division II guy had never played nickel before a day in his life, and he was able to pick up the position and end up starting the last 7 games there. So I say that because the reason why we saw them, if you want to call it experiment, fine, whatever you want to call it. But the reason why we saw Nick Eamon out there is because they realized they had some talented safeties. I'm not saying it was foolproof or that's the way it should have went, but what it looked like was they struggled to have someone there. They didn't trust having someone play that position based on the guys that were healthy, but they also realized, man, we have a really, really talented freshman, a guy that eventually became a freshman All-American in Jalen Kilgore. And you also have a really talented guy that was an All-American the year before in Nick Eamon. And you also have a guy, DQ Smith, who's also an All-American. So it's one of those dilemmas, and we talk about it, right, from a coaching standpoint. Oh, that's a dream scenario. It is until you're in a situation where you got to make some of those choices. So I think they were, again, it doesn't justify it, but when we take a step back and we start to why were they doing that? Why was Nick Eamon there? Why was Kilgore? Because as the season went on, and honestly, I'm not going to be shocked to see Kilgore play nickel heading into this season simply because you have some talented safeties. Now, obviously, if guys aren't performing, that's one thing. But if you feel confident in these guys, if you feel confident that DQ Smith is going to get back on the right track consistently, that Nick Eamon is going to be able to do things that he was doing freshman year and do things, pre-injury, then yeah, I mean, I could see Kilgore at nickel. But again, that's one of the beauties that you have if, in a perfect world, you have a lot of talented guys and you feel comfortable there. Hopefully it's not a situation where you're just plugging someone there, but we'll see.
So I agree. I think he'll be able to do it because I would just train him at corner the entire offseason because he is the best athlete of the 3. Okay.
Lengthy too. Lengthy guy.
I mean, look, he's not 6'4", 225, but Mike, playing defensive back and particularly when you have to play man coverage, there just aren't 6'4" guys that can turn their hips and stay in phase on double moves and in tight spaces with wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Kilgore practiced exclusively at safety until they got into the season and then had a couple weeks at nickel, and then they threw him out there because DQ Smith isn't a nickel. Honestly, he may be a linebacker, but just down in the box, strong safety. Nick Eamon is a free safety who really could be the second coming of Isaiah Simmons. I mean, I'd really like to see some creativeness there. But Kilgore, when you look at him, you look at his high school tape as a wide receiver, some of the things he did on defense, I think he is the most natural guy to do it. But it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they brought in 1 or 2 corners.
Yeah.
Or a Jalewis Solomon, if he's like J.C. Horn as a true freshman who comes in and plays nickel. So you just add to your depth there. But I do think they need to address at cornerback. Safety, they're fine. I would like 1 or 2 more wide receivers like we talked about. They need a quarterback. And it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they could pull it off if they add another edge rusher or another linebacker.
Mm-hmm. So, I like it. I like your Christmas wish list.
Yeah. I mean, there is still work to be done. And so, Mike, I can't thank you enough for being with us. by the time we air this, we will know Braden Lee's fate. Let's just go ahead and call it. Okay. The kid's father died, I think, in February.
Mhm.
Okay. If he feels like he's got to be the man of the house now and stay closer to home, I'm not begrudging him that. Now, if he knew this last month or 3 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, be man enough to say, hey, I've just got to stay closer to home. Maybe he didn't really know until this week. Either way, I wish him the best. That would add maybe another corner, but if you're South Carolina today, I mean, we didn't even talk about Brady Hunt, who I think when you look at his film from being a freshman, All-MAC and All-American in G5, and being preseason Mackey watch list, I see like Hayden Hurst.
That's what I see. Same size. Hayden was 6'5", 250. This guy's 6'6", 249. And the thing about it is they run both sneaky fast. I mean, both run around the same 40 time. Now, and I put this out there on Twitter the other day that's what it reminded me of. Someone that had an opportunity to cover Hayden Hurst here during my early days when I was at Watch Fox. There's two questions for me. One, is he going to be able to adjust to the speed up here? And I think he will, but that's always a big question, right? I mean, some guys, it takes some time. I mean, I think of a guy like Nick Muse. Unfortunately, he went through an injury. But this guy's coming back from an injury. You know, sometimes those lower body injuries, regardless if it's knee, ankle, whatever the case may be, sometimes from a mental standpoint, it takes you over a year to really get back to being yourself just from the mental hurdles. So if he can overcome those mental hurdles, I think, and the other thing too, Keith, you have this guy for a couple of years. He's not just a one and done here. And
maybe 3 years.
Exactly.
All right, Mike, tell us where to find all of your stuff and those videos. I can't wait to go watch them today after another cup of coffee.
Yeah, I know. I might have to go get myself one. I don't know if I'm boyfriend of the year or not. Convinced the girlfriend to open up the Christmas presents early, gave her an espresso machine, and it's been used 3 times, all by me since midnight last night. So didn't know what the hell I was doing the first time. I think we're making progress each time, but then again, we're getting, more out of it as each hour passes. Hopefully take a little nap before this press conference from Beamer at 3. But having said all that, head on over to Gamecock Central. I mean, we have things covered. I mean, it's insane. We're all taking, we're all doing a little something as far as what we bring to the table that's a little different. Wes, Chris, the interns. I'm doing a lot of video stuff. So we have a lot of unique content for this National Signing Day. And updated stats, updated measurements, updated highlights on all the guys that have committed. And I'm actually going to post as soon as I log off with you, Keith. I'm going to have an updated roundup list with all those links, and you can see additional stories on every player. So head on over, get updated, see what's going on, and feel more educated so that when you go to the bar tonight or this weekend or with the holiday season around the corner, you can be telling your family members or friends, be like, this guy coming in, Gatlin, he's scored over 30 friggin' touchdowns the last 3 years. Goodbye. I mean, this guy's a stud. How do you know that? I follow Gamecock Central. So there you go. Merry Christmas.
Mike, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you're going to get to spend some time up in the Boston area with your family.
Yep. Going to head on back soon and go see the family. Go see my grandfather, the 95-year-old that friggin' golfs still every day. It's a little cold up there to go outside, so I think we're going to go to a golf simulator, I think, a day or two after Christmas. So looking forward to that. He'll still kick my ass, but, what are you going to do?
So that's awesome. So my good friend Chris Payne, who is the owner of Nana's Porch, which is the best full-service catering company in the greater Charlotte area. His mom lives in College Station. She's 90. She walked for her master's degree from the University of North Texas, the oldest graduate of the University of North Texas. Made big headlines all over the news up in Dallas. And so that was really neat.
That's awesome.
So Christmas is about being with your family. Merry Christmas to your Gamecock Central family, Wes, Chris, and the guys. And we'll look forward to a happy new year and catching up with you in 2024. Always appreciate you being so gracious with your time. And, maybe you'll go to a bar in Southie and have a beer and commiserate over the woefulness of the Patriots season. I listened to the Off the Pike podcast. It's from The Ringer. Bill Simmons, the founder of The Ringer. Brian Barrett does that podcast. It's just pure misery in Foxborough.
I'm all right if the Patriots keep stinking. I'm all right with that. Just keep losing, baby.
Get Drake May or Caleb Williams or
what do the Raiders always say? No, just win, baby. No, just lose, baby. Just lose.
All right, Mike. Merry Christmas. And again, thanks so much. All the best to you. And we'll look forward to catching up with you in 2024.
Merry Christmas to you, Keith. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that was Mike Uva from Gamecock Central. So it is official. And from my good friend Tony Morrell at thebigspur.com, what is it about these Vanderbilt guys? Gamecocks get 2 commitments from Vanderbilt, and they both decide to go somewhere else. But Jaden McGowan, I mean, like I said, 88 yards against SEC competition this year. Okay, you got Jared Brown. He's a slot receiver. Now go get 2 dudes. All right, this guy wanted more NIL money, tried to leverage it, committed, took our money or took our offer for money, and then tries to sneak in a visit to Boston College. He goes ahead, he sneaks in, he goes to Boston College. They're giving him a little more money, and so he's going to Boston College. AJ Swan flipped. And so to me, you need cornerback 1, you need wide receiver 1, and maybe 2 or 3. Jared Brown, I think, will be a 2. I also like some of the younger guys, in particular Tyshawn Russell. I think he will be a player. I think Kelton Henderson, who was an Under Armour All-American, was injured this year. Clint, I agree, Brazel from Tulane, but there's also a guy who is at James Madison now, who's in the portal, who's like 6'2", 207, that I know the Gamecocks are really going to make a big run for. Elijah Surratt is his name. But let me tell you, there are going to be a lot of guys getting the portal, and there's probably going to be a couple of guys that are at ACC schools that may not be in the portal yet, but may drop in the portal after their team's bowl game, in which case South Carolina will be happy to get them. But to me, you need to go get 2 dudes now. You need, if you're going all in on Lenore Sellers, you need to put your money in getting him the best 2 wide receivers you can get. You can get Robbie Ashford probably for cheap. He could be your emergency backup quarterback. I would like to see another edge guy or a bigger guy that could play tackle and be a 3 technique or be an end and a 3-man front, maybe even a linebacker, because, Pup Howard could be an edge. Wendell Gregory's probably an edge. And Fred Johnson at 6'4", 225, he could be an edge. So, we'll see. So Shane Beamer's press conference coming up in 25 minutes. We'll have the best of that tomorrow, along with my exclusive interview with Dante Reno. I completely agree, Clint. Pup, he may be 260 by the time spring practice starts. He was 245. And so, he's a big dude. Honestly, I think you could go to more of like the Alabama, Georgia style defense. Now you've got DeAndre Jules, who's a bigger guy. You got Nick Barrett, who was banged up last year. You got Jerome Simmons can be your nose. TJ Sanders, Tonka, Boogie. Maybe you get a guy that can play in the 3-man front. And then you can utilize guys like JT Gear, like Dylan Stewart, like Pup Howard, like Wendell Gregory. They could stand up or put their hand in the dirt. And so, I do think some of these guys need to play linebacker. I would, if you could pick up a guy like an E.J. Lightsey from Georgia, or I really wish you could have gotten one of those other guys that one went to, I think, Missouri and one went to Arkansas. Or maybe you find a very productive linebacker like at Arkansas State or someplace like that can play for you. DJ Lundy, that would, be another guy. Hell, I think Muschamp, we almost got him out of high school. E.J. Lightsey, same thing. I agree, Craig. Pup just did not look right at linebacker. He's too big. And that's my problem with Clayton White. And so let me address this, okay? There are going to be coaching changes. I think it will probably be after the first of the year, but for all I know, Shane Beamer may announce coaching changes or that guys are leaving at his press conference today. I do anticipate them making room for a linebackers coach. So you are going to have a linebackers coach. I, think there will be other changes as well. So, all right. So on the 31st, I think Justin Stepp's contract is up. Travian will have to be renewed. I think Jody Wright's contract, is it up? I think that may be it. Clayton White did not get an extension, so his contract is up. Look, I like that idea. And so, look, I was told on strength and conditioning there could be a change, but it's easy to modify and change what you're doing, okay? I put part of that on Wanamaker just on him. I think he got a girlfriend for the first time, and they probably enjoyed a lot of cardio together and liked how he looked. But I just think Shane Beamer letting the girl go to Nebraska that was in charge of nutrition, that would not have happened. But I also think, Luke Day is influenced by Chip Morton, which when you get to the NFL, it's more about maintenance and keeping guys healthy and getting them through the season. I think Jared says he's at 145 now. I just think that they could change what they're doing to get guys bigger and stronger that need to, trim guys down like clearly Cam Pringle and Blake Franks and some other guys. But I know there were guys on the offensive and defensive line that felt like, man, we're flipping too many tires. And, if there's ever a flood, we can outwork the hell out of the National Guard stacking sandbags. They need to be doing power cleans. They need to be benching more. They need to be squatting more. They need to be packing on muscle mass. And as a strength coach, it's easy to adjust that. If you can't coach, you just can't coach. If you're a strength coach, you can adjust, and you could certainly put Jamil Walker and give him more of a voice in your off-season program. So, Clint, I had a story for overtime on Marquise Henderson. I'm not going to say it here, but you could probably ask some guys that were in overtime, and they would let you know. So, at any rate, Merry Christmas to everybody that's not a member of Gamecock Pod Daily. I think we'll have a big Garnet and Black Town Hall tonight. I hope many of you will be in that. I'll probably tell that story again. It's really inexcusable. And it had to do with a coach on the current coaching staff that needs to go and really can't recruit his own position. So I think I've made my feelings known about that. So Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to everybody. Tomorrow's show will be the final show of the year. An exclusive interview with Dante Reno. And all the best from Clint. I'm not going to tell you so your head won't explode. We'll have the best of Shane Beamer's press conference. We'll run down all the big flips because Florida's board is in full meltdown mode. Georgia flipped KJ Bolden. Oregon flipped some guys. Alabama's flipped some guys. And so we'll have a lot to talk about tomorrow. That'll be the last show of the year. And then on Friday morning, we're packing up and heading to Louisville, Kentucky for Christmas to Addison's godmother's for Christmas. So Santa Claus will be delivering some of her gifts to Louisville and some here at home. Man, I need to find out what Louisville's doing in the portal because those dudes have a lot of money. And so thanks to everybody for being in. We set a record for guys watching live today. The chat box has been awesome. When we come back in January, on January 2nd, man, it's going to be wide freaking open because guys are going to be lined up for that next portal visit period. So join us. I guess that'd be Wednesday, January the 3rd. Can't wait for the college playoff semifinals. Those are going to be great. And should be a lot of good football. But Christmas is about faith, family, and bowl games. And so I'm thankful that Jesus Christ came down from heaven, walked the earth, gave his life so that we could be covered by his blood and forgiven of our sins. And that's really what Christmas is about. And for kids, certainly. And look, Jay Diz makes great points. Napier and Drink, they still on Beamer. But I'm just going to say I wish all of you guys a Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year. I'm looking forward to watching a lot of football and spending time with family and friends for Christmas. And then I'll be back on January the 2nd, and Wednesday, January the 3rd, we'll be back for Gamecock Pod Live. So until then, go Gamecocks. God bless you all. And thanks to BP Skinner Clothiers for being our sponsor. Go and check them out. They are fantastic. I'm out of here. God bless you all and Merry Christmas. Goodbye.